State fans, that was especially for you. Just wanted to brighten your day a little bit today after a late night, a rough night last night. He said he was thinking that the designated hitter was hitless. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Hitless hitter.
We've combined you combine hitless and hitter. And...
See, there it is. That makes sense now. Poor guy. Oh, that's been there. I've been there. That was on the Ole Miss Jacksonville State game last night. ESPN Plus. That was during the Ole Miss game yesterday. Oh man. But yes, unfortunately, Mississippi State fell last night. Let's start with the big picture, then we'll talk about the game itself. They lose last night. Overall thoughts, the season comes to an end. Just putting one on a tee for you.
I mean, you can't be disappointed overall. You can be disappointed in that game, right? That is a heartbreaking way to lose that game. But this was a team that nobody had any real expectations for. I think they were predicted 11th or 12th. I could be wrong in the SEC. I do know that whatever that prediction was, nobody said that's going to be a tournament team. They got off to a tremendous start. They went through a really bad lull, and then went in a situation where I think a lot of teams would have given up, and a lot of teams would have just played out the string. They found a way to win games. Despite the fact that offensively that's one of the worst basketball teams I've ever seen. I mean, they were Rick Ray-esque sometimes in their execution offensively. But they found a way. And the one thing I liked about this team was that I felt like they were likable. I just felt like there wasn't a lot of ego on this team. There wasn't a bunch of guys who, you would get frustrated watching Jeffries and Moore and Eric Reed just heave threes and not make them. But you felt bad, I think they want to make them. They're not just doing this because of their ego. So a tough way to end the season, but a great season for Mississippi State. You can't, if you're not excited about Mississippi State basketball, then you're just not excitable, because that's a program that's going to go in the right direction. They've got the right guy in place to lead. And he just needs to continue to add to what he's got. And I think, with a portal and, what happens in the portal, you saw what's happening in recruiting, getting a guy like Josh Huppert to come on board. I feel like everything's moving in the right direction for Mississippi State basketball.
Now, there are some exceptions, right, with Alabama football fans. They are so pathetically spoiled rotten that if they win 11 games, they deem the season a failure. So that's an exception. But most sports fans, if their team just works their tail off and brings it every night, they don't have to be great to be loved. It's incredible, the difference. I'll use – I know – I shouldn't bring up the NBA, but my Pelicans fanhood, right? Last year, the team was identical to this year's teams in terms of record and stuff. But last year's team every night brought it, worked their tails off every single night, and I loved watching them play. This team doesn't. Inconsistent effort, and because of that, they're frustrating. As long as a team just brings it and plays hard, then fans will fall in love with them. And this State team, worst three-point shooting team in America. Brutal to watch offensively. Fans love them. Not necessarily because they made the tournament, but because they had Mississippi State on their chest, and every night they brought it every single night, and they fell in love with that team because of that.
You play the stereotypes if you want, but Mississippi State fans are going to love a blue-collar team. They're going to love a team that plays in the dirt. I mean, that's the identity of Mississippi State, isn't it? So it's no surprise that the fan base embraced them the way they did. And next year they get to play in a nicer version of their arena, and we'll take it from there.
We'll talk about the game itself when we come to Pittsburgh. Not a great night from State's best player. Honestly, Tolu Smith was kept pretty well in check for the most part. Yeah. He had 13 points on 5 of 11 shooting. Davis was the leading scorer for State. He had 15 more. The aforementioned Moore had 14. Nobody else had double digits for Mississippi State. Getting into that spot to have a final shot was pretty impressive. I think it was a 6-point game with like a minute 20 left. They were down and had a shot at the buzzer to win. Call me crazy, I think the flurry of made threes at the beginning of the game kind of hurt Mississippi State because then they started taking early in the shot clock, ill-advised three-point shots. They fell in love with the three because they made a few of them, and that hurt their offense in that game.
You just said something that Robbie Falk and we talked about on the podcast all season long, that early threes kill State, because if they make three early in the first 6 minutes of the game, you know that the remaining 34 minutes of the game, they're only going to make like two. But they're going to keep shooting, but they're only going to make like two. That's exactly what happened last night. State was 4 of their first 7 from three, and then they went 2 of 16 from three. And, to the point where somebody tweeted, this was brutal. Somebody tweets at me like 5 minutes into the game, like, oh, you may have to eat your words on shooting threes. And I'm just like, now it's over. And immediately after that, with that tweet, the balloon burst. And so you're correct. State gets some early confidence, and then it just is what it is. After that, they just can't shoot threes. And you saw the looks. If you watched Mississippi State last night, and it was your first time, those were not bad looks. Those were not contested shots they were taking. They just can't make. Look. We talk about Jans and the coaching job he did. He designed a play on the inbounds with 2.7 seconds left that got his guy a wide open corner three and an opportunity for a tip in to win the game, and they just didn't fall. Jans did everything he could do except tip the ball in himself at that point. And then also, don't forget that State, Tolu Smith goes up and it's going to lay up and lay in, and it gets blocked. Great play by the backup center there, Pitt's centers are just great stories. You've got Federico, who didn't play, and then the other two guys are twin brothers. So I thought that was like, where did they find these guys? Yeah. But Pitt was very much what I was told they were going to be, a team that shot threes, they shot contested threes, and they made contested threes. Defensively, you look at the stats for this game, and you think State won this game going away. They held Pitt to under 40% shooting. They held a team that averages 77 a game to 60. They out-rebounded them by 20+. I think I just saw a stat on the text line. Somebody said that prior to this game, teams that had done that were 348-0 in NCAA tournament games. So
wow.
Leave it to Mississippi State to be a trendsetter in that regard. Yeah, just State did everything defensively right in this game, but offensively, finally, it came back to bite them.
Yeah. And back to the original point, State took 4 more three-point shots than one of the better three-point shooting teams that they've seen all season long. That's the difference in this game. State was more physical, more athletic, clearly. You mentioned the rebounding numbers. That was the only thing that kept them in this game. They just dominated the glass and got boards, but Pittsburgh had the outside shot makers, and Mississippi State just didn't have. Not last night, all season. It just doesn't have an outside shot maker. That is the biggest priority, and you know it is. I'm not telling you anything that you guys don't already know. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This is why I get paid the big bucks. Chris James' priority this offseason, I think it needs to be portal, because you don't know how a high school guy's going to translate. They need immediate shooting. Even just one pretty good shooter would have changed things for them last night and at multiple points this season. They wouldn't have been playing last night with a decent outside shooter that was consistent. But
right, one guy.
They need shot makers. Pittsburgh had shot makers last night. Mississippi State didn't, despite the physical advantage, despite the rebounding advantage, the athletic advantage. The three-point shot won the game. That's it. Pittsburgh won the game because they made outside shots.
Yeah, and that's what Mississippi State's focus in the portal is going to be, is getting some guys who can make three-point shots. We'll talk about Tolu Smith and whether or not he's going to come back for another season, and I'm sure in just a bit. But, assuming that he does.
That? He tweeted something that
made it read like he's out, but I don't think that's official yet. And then we'll obviously the Bulldog Initiative guys are going to sit down with him and try to craft an NIL deal to keep him around for another season. I don't think, because the thing with Tolu is he's not an NBA guy, because his game is just too limited. In today's NBA, you have to be able to shoot. You have to be able to shoot outside, even your big guys, and he does not do that. So, 20 years ago, he might have been a top 5 pick. Now, You know, I mean, it's a question: do you want to go ahead and start playing in Europe? Do you want to play in the G League or something like that, or do you want to get a decent NIL deal and come back for another year of college and just sort of see where you are at the end of that? I don't know the answer. We'll find out. We'll find out very soon.
So there is a chance he returns, though, despite the
there's
tweet.
A chance he returns. Correct. And if he does, then, yeah, you're spending all of your time in the portal trying to find guys who can hit. And that's the thing, though. Eric Reed was a 46% three-point shooter a season ago. He was 24% this year. And I understand that there's a difference in competition between the Missouri Valley and the SEC, but open shots are open shots. And you think you'd be able to make those shots. And so, I mean, Reed was a big disappointment this year for Mississippi State. He could be back for another season as well. So, you know, we'll see where it takes State, but that's going to be their focus in the portal because they've got everything else. They've got the physical guys down low. They've got some ball handlers. They need guards who can shoot.